Wouldn't it be like the most petty, humiliating, yet startling thing if I just fired my hat at him? So I didn't tell anybody.
When you think of The Andy Griffith Show, warm feelings of family, community, and small-town charm probably come to mind. The show painted a picture-perfect image of Mayberry, a peaceful town where life was simple, people were kind, and problems were solved with a smile and a lesson learned. But while viewers across America were laughing along with Andy, Opie, Barney, and Aunt Bee, something very different was happening behind the scenes. The actors who made the show so beloved were not always as close off-screen as they appeared on it. In fact, there were deep tensions between some of the cast members, tensions that were kept quiet for years. One of the most surprising conflicts involved Frances Bevier, the actress who played Aunt Bee, and her difficult relationship with both Andy Griffith and other cast members. Even Ron Howard, who played young Opie, noticed the differences in how the cast interacted when the cameras stopped rolling. What seemed like a happy television family was actually full of hidden struggles, misunderstandings, and emotional distance. This is the story of the real relationships behind one of America's most loved TV shows, and how those who made us laugh were often dealing with their own pain in silence. Ron Howard may be known today as an Oscar-winning director, but he first captured America's heart as Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show. Born on March 1, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma, Ron came from a family deeply connected to show business. His father, Rance Howard, was an actor and writer, while his mother, Jean, was also an actress. With parents in the entertainment world, it's no surprise that Ron started acting at a very young age. He appeared in his first film when he was just 5 years old and quickly gained more roles in television shows like The Twilight Zone and Dennis the Menace. But his big break came in 1960 when he was cast as Opie, the son of Sheriff Andy Taylor. Even as a young boy, Ron was professional, focused, and showed real talent. He often recalled how the set felt friendly, and how Andy Griffith helped him feel comfortable, especially during early scenes where he had to pretend, like holding a toy turtle that was supposed to be dead. These memories showed how gentle and calm the set could be, at least on the surface. Ron became one of the most recognizable child actors of his time, but as he grew older, he started to see things differently. While he always spoke kindly about his experiences, he also noticed some people on set were more distant and difficult. It was an early lesson that the people who appear happy on screen aren't always that way in real life. This early experience in Hollywood would later shape Ron's own approach as a director, one that valued kindness, teamwork, and understanding. The Andy Griffith Show first aired on CBS on October 3, 1960. It was supposed to be a simple show about life in a small town, but it quickly became one of the most popular sitcoms in American history. The series ran for 8 seasons, ending on April 1, 1968, with a total of 249 episodes. It started in black and white and later switched to color, but the heart of the show stayed the same. At the center of the story was Sheriff Andy Taylor, played by Andy Griffith, and his young son Opie, played by Ron Howard. They lived in the fictional town of Mayberry, North Carolina, a place full of quirky characters like the silly but lovable Deputy Barney Fife, Don Knotts, and the wise, caring Aunt Bee, Frances Bevier. The show was known for its warm humor, gentle lessons, and strong sense of community. It was a safe space for families to watch together, a break from the fast-changing world of the 1960s. In fact, The Andy Griffith Show was so popular that it ended its final season at number 1 in the Nielsen ratings, a rare achievement that only I Love Lucy and Seinfeld have matched. While Andy Griffith never won an Emmy for his role, his co-stars did. Don Knotts won 5 Emmy Awards, and Frances Bevier won 1 for her work as Aunt Bee. The show's success led to spin-offs like Gomer Pyle, USMC, and reunion specials that kept the spirit of Mayberry alive for decades. Fans still celebrate it at an annual festival in Andy Griffith's hometown, Mount Airy, North Carolina. But despite the show's lasting charm, things behind the scenes were far from perfect. The happy image of Mayberry hid real human struggles, especially between Andy Griffith and Frances Bevier. Frances Bevier played one of the most loved characters on The Andy Griffith Show, Aunt Bee. She was the sweet, no-nonsense woman who cooked meals, gave advice, and held the Taylor family together. Her role was central to the show's heart, and fans adored her for it. But off-screen, Frances was a very different person. She was known to be private, quiet, and very serious about her work. While Andy Griffith and other cast members enjoyed joking around and bonding off-set, Frances preferred to keep to herself. This made her seem cold or unfriendly to some of her co-stars. Even directors found it hard to work with her at times. One director, Howard Morris, described working with Frances as like walking through a minefield. Something as small as asking her to move slightly for a camera angle could upset her. Frances didn't like being challenged or corrected, and she wanted things done a certain way. These traits made her a professional, but they also created tension on set. Andy Griffith, who was generally warm and easygoing, found it hard to connect with her. They often disagreed on how things should be done, and their differences weren't just small creative disputes, they were personal. Ron Howard, even as a child, noticed the distance between Frances and the rest of the cast. While he didn't get involved in the adult problems, he could tell when someone didn't seem happy. Over time, these issues built up. The kind smiles and caring gestures we saw on screen were not always real. Frances Bevere might have been a great actress, but she struggled with building real friendships on set. Behind the scenes, the biggest source of tension wasn't between Ron Howard and a fellow actor, but between Andy Griffith and Frances Bevere. While their characters Sheriff Andy Taylor and Aunt Bee shared a close and respectful bond on screen, their real-life relationship was filled with conflict and misunderstanding. Frances was known for being very private and guarded. She didn't open up easily, and she avoided casual conversations or bonding moments with her co-stars. Andy, on the other hand, was warm, friendly, and enjoyed making people laugh. This difference in personalities made it hard for the two to get along. Their working relationship was professional, but it lacked the warmth that their characters had on the show. Over time, small disagreements grew into deep resentment. One of the most emotional moments came years after the show ended. Andy decided to visit Frances at her home, hoping to clear the air and reconnect. But instead of welcoming him, Frances was upset by the unannounced visit. The meeting didn't bring healing, it only made things worse. For a long time, the two didn't speak again. However, as time passed, Frances began to reflect on her life. Toward the end of her life, while she was battling cancer, she decided to call Andy Griffith. In a rare and touching moment, she apologized for how she had treated him. She admitted that she had been difficult and said she was sorry they hadn't gotten along better. Andy later shared that this apology meant a lot to him. It brought some peace to a relationship that had been troubled for decades. It was a reminder that even the most stubborn hearts can change when faced with the truth of life's shortness. The story of The Andy Griffith Show is a tale of contrasts. On one hand, it's a beloved part of American television history, remembered for its humor, warmth, and moral lessons. On the other hand, it was also the setting for real-life pain, misunderstandings, and personal challenges. Ron Howard grew up watching all of this. As a child, he may not have understood every adult issue, but he learned valuable lessons about people, work, and leadership. Those lessons helped shape his later career as a director who is known for being respectful, calm, and deeply professional. Frances Bevere, after retiring in 1972, moved to a small town in North Carolina. There she lived a quiet life, away from the spotlight. People who knew her in Siler City said she was kind, but still private. She passed away in 1989 at the age of 86, due to heart-related issues. Andy Griffith also lived to be 86. He passed away in 2012 on Roanoke Island, North Carolina. Despite the years of tension, both actors left behind a legacy that fans continue to celebrate. The show still airs in reruns, and its messages of kindness and simplicity still touch hearts. But now, we also know that behind those messages were real people, dealing with real struggles. And that truth makes The Andy Griffith Show not just a television classic, but a very human story. Frances Bevere spent many years at Odsty, eventually found the Grace Torah Consul. In the end, it wasn't about HOAs, right or wrong, it was about tortists recognizing the humanity in each other and choosing to let go the legacy left behind. Is one of talent, heart, and ultimately forgiveness. And while The Andy Griffith Show chapter closed in Ron Howard's early life, there was Anno Thirstery, which was quietly unfolding, a match made in heaven. There's a kind of love that doesn't make headlines. Every day, it doesn't scream or demand the spotlight, it just endures quietly, steadily. Decade after decade, that's the love story of Ron and Cheryl Howard. Hollywood has no shortage of whirlwind romances, public heartbreaks, or headline-grabbing flings. But in the middle of thought noise, Ron and Cheryl built something rare, something real. On June 7, 2025, they celebrated 50 years of marriage, half a century of growing, dreaming, building, and still choosing each other every single day. Ron Marquette's golden anniversary, with a photo of two of them standing on the beach at sunset. No big production, no red carpet, just the warm glow of twilight and two people who've spent most of their lives in sync, he said. He was grateful for the family, the memories, and the journey, describing their love as a river rid a throw.com. Waters and tricky rapids hecridited their success to a simple secret. They just kept paddling. They were only 16 when they met two teenagers in California with bright eyes and bigger. He had freckles in that famous hair. She had a quiet strength and the kind of presence you don't forget. Hellways said there was never anyone else. Was it their first date? Was classic 1970s romance. Ron picked Cheryl up in his mint green Volkswagen Beetle, took her to the movies, and then they grabbed a pizza. The car was nothing fancy, but it get them where they needed to go. Years later, Ron would laugh and say, "It still runs great, so do we." 5 years after that date, they stood in Burbank, California, and said, "I do." It was June 1975. The guest list included friends, family, and a few Happy Days co-stars, including late Tom Bosley. Ron had just started on the sitcom a year before in life. was moving fast, but he knew Cheryl was his constant, and yet she didn't say yes right away. In fact, it took 3 proposals. Cheryl, always thoughtful and intentional, told him she wasn't ready not. Yet she had things she wanted to do, school life, a future she could shape for herself before tying it to his dear daughter. Bryce would later describe her mom as a force of nature, the kind of woman who kept everyone grounded. Even Ron, looking back, Cheryl said it was Ron's love for storytelling that drew in. It still does. Together, they raised 4 children, including Bryce and Paige, who followed them into the world of film. But the Howards were never just a Hollywood family. They were a team on it. Cheryl once wrote that their shared passion for stories brought them together, and it was clear that love became the greatest story they ever told. Their daughters often described Cheryl, the heart of the family. Paige once said that trying to explain how much they loved their mother brought tears to her eyes. She called Cheryl the stars, Thesan, and the moon, their guiding light. Still, it wasn't always easy. Ron admits it takes more than just love. Even though Ron Howard was only 6 years old when the Andy Griffith Show began, the experience of working on that set played a huge role in shaping his character and future career. While most children were learning how to ride bikes or play baseball, Ron was learning how to take direction from adults, memorize lines, and perform in front of cameras. But more importantly, he was watching how adults treated one another behind the scenes. The behavior he saw influenced the kind of leader he would later become in Hollywood. He saw professionalism, but also pride, stress, and sometimes coldness. He noticed when someone treated others with kindness and respect and when they didn't. These early lessons stayed with him. When Ron moved on to Happy Days and then into directing films like Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, and Cinderella Man, he brought that sense of balance and emotional awareness with him. Colleagues often speak about how calm and humble Ron is as a director. He's known for listening to others, creating a peaceful working environment, and solving problems without drama. That approach might have started in Mayberry, where he saw the damage that silence and unresolved tension could cause between people who were supposed to work together like family. In interviews, Ron has always been respectful when speaking about his time on The Andy Griffith Show, but his quiet honesty also hints at a deeper understanding that even the happiest places can hide pain. And rather than turning bitter, he learned from it. While much attention is given to Andy Griffith and Frances Bavier's tension, another key member of the cast brought a much-needed sense of lightness to both the screen and the set. Don Knotts, playing the nervous and excitable deputy, Barney Fife. Don Knotts quickly became a fan favorite. His comedic timing, physical humor, and over-the-top reactions were central to the show's charm. But behind the laughs, Don was also a true professional and brought a calming presence that helped balance the dynamics among the cast. Knotts and Griffith had a strong friendship, both on screen and off. Their chemistry was authentic, built on trust and mutual respect. Knotts' role was essential to the show's early success, and his departure after season 5 was deeply felt. He left to pursue other acting opportunities, and while the show continued, many fans and critics agree that something special was missing without him. Interestingly, Knotts' exit also affected the energy on set. With his lightheartedness gone, the atmosphere grew a bit more serious. Some insiders say that Don Knotts often acted as a buffer between the different personalities on set, especially when things got tense. He helped smooth over small disagreements and kept things fun. Ron Howard looked up to Knotts as a gentle and funny adult who never made him feel like just a kid actor. Don Knotts' legacy is not just about making audiences laugh. It's about how he helped hold the cast together during tough times, even when others clashed. It's easy to assume that actors on a popular TV show are living perfect lives, but the truth is more complex. The success of The Andy Griffith Show brought a lot of attention to its cast, and with that came pressure. Each actor had their own way of dealing with the demands of fame, tight filming schedules, and public expectations. For Andy Griffith, the pressure came from being the lead and carrying the emotional weight of the show. He was involved in creative decisions and often acted as a mentor to younger actors like Ron Howard. But being the star also meant facing criticism, handling egos, and sometimes taking the blame when things didn't go right. Frances Bavier's personality didn't mix well with this kind of high-pressure environment. She wanted order, privacy, and respect. When she didn't feel those things were being given to her, she would retreat or push back. Unfortunately, this led to misunderstandings. What some saw as coldness might have been a defense mechanism for someone who felt out of place in Hollywood's social world. For Ron Howard, watching these adult dynamics unfold must have been confusing. As a child, he wasn't part of the drama, but he was still surrounded by it. He learned early on that fame doesn't guarantee friendship, and success doesn't always mean happiness. That's a powerful lesson for anyone, especially a young boy growing up under the bright lights of television. One of the most touching parts of this story is how it ends, not with bitterness, but with forgiveness. After the Andy Griffith Show ended, the cast members went their separate ways. Andy Griffith continued acting in other roles and became known for shows like Matlock, while Ron Howard's career skyrocketed, Frances Bevere retired from acting altogether and moved to a quiet town in North Carolina. For years, the feud between Andy and Frances remained unresolved, but as Frances grew older and faced health problems, something changed in her. She picked up the phone and called Andy Griffith. In that phone call, she apologized for how she had behaved during their years on the show. She took full responsibility, and even admitted that it was her fault they hadn't gotten along better. Andy was moved by the apology. It allowed him to finally let go of any hard feelings he may have held. Though they didn't become close friends after that, the apology brought a sense of peace. Frances Bevere died in 1989, and Andy Griffith passed away in 2012. Their story reminds us that it's never too late to ask for forgiveness or to make peace with the past. Even after years of silence, a simple phone call can change everything. For fans of the show, this moment of healing added a bittersweet layer to the legacy of Mayberry. Today, The Andy Griffith Show remains a symbol of simpler times. It still airs on television, and fans across generations continue to fall in love with the slow pace, warm characters, and funny moments. People travel to Mount Airy, North Carolina, Andy Griffith's real-life hometown, to experience the Mayberry, feeling there's even a museum and a festival dedicated to the show. But behind that sunny image is a more honest story. The people who made the show were real human beings, with flaws, egos, and personal pain. Ron Howard, as a young boy, was lucky to have experienced both the magic and the reality of television. He saw the beauty of storytelling, but also the risks of letting pride and silence get in the way of human connection. His career since then has been shaped by those early experiences. Whether directing, award-winning dramas, or producing heartfelt films, Ron has always focused on telling stories with emotional truth. That's perhaps the most important legacy of The Andy Griffith Show. It wasn't just about making people laugh, it was also about how people deal with each other when things get hard. Mayberry may not have been real, but the lessons we can learn from what happened behind the scenes are in the end. The story of The Andy Griffith Show is one that continues to teach, even decades later. It reminds us that appearances can be deceiving. Just because a place looks perfect on the outside doesn't mean everything is peaceful behind closed doors. The show gave us comfort and joy, but the people behind it lived full, complicated lives, just like the rest of us. Ron Howard's journey, from child actor to celebrated director, shows how early experiences, both good and bad, can shape who we become. He took the lessons from Mayberry and used them to build a career rooted in empathy, storytelling, and professionalism. Frances Bevere's story shows that even those who struggle to connect can find peace in the end. And AndyGriffiths.com leadership, both on screen and off, reminds us of the value of kindness and humility. Behind the smiles, there were real struggles. But in those struggles, there are lessons that last far longer than any television episode. That's why The Andy Griffith Show will always hold a special place in America's heart, not just for what we saw on screen, but for the truths that unfolded quietly when the cameras stopped rolling. After The Andy Griffith Show and Happy Days, Ron Howard made a major shift that would define his adult career. He moved from in front of the camera to behind it. While many child stars struggle to transition into adult roles or find success after their early fame fades, Ron carved out a path very few have managed. His first big opportunity came when he directed the 1977 film Grand Theft Auto, a project he co-wrote with his father, Rance Howard. It was produced by Roger Corman, known for giving young filmmakers a shot at proving themselves with small budgets but full creative control. That early success gave Ron the confidence he needed to keep going. From there, he directed several TV films and then gained attention with Night Shift in 1982, which starred Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton. But it was Splash in 1984, starring Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah, that truly established him as a director capable of mixing heart, humor, and fantasy into something audiences loved. Over the next 2 decades, Ron Howard continued to evolve into one of Hollywood's most respected filmmakers. He directed Apollo 13, Cocoon, Backdraft, and the critically acclaimed A Beautiful Mind, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture and Best Director in 2002. What made his films stand out wasn't just the technical skill, they were emotionally honest. They focused on human struggle, quiet strength, and moments of moral